Today I wanted to do a video on black relationships. As I sit back and I look at the material that is presented to me on YouTube, I've noticed that there's a lot of material going on in which you have content creators speaking on the nature of masculinity and the nature of femininity. And what I mean by these content creators is that they are all black. They're black men and black women who's pushing out this material. Now, the content is not bad. It's not bad content, but it's oversaturated. Now, we could sit here and say that, the reasons why it's oversaturated is, for one, that the momentum of what Kevin Samuels and Kendra G and other content creators have started, the momentum is built up. They see the success of those two content creators and many others, and they're following suit. 'Cause, I mean, let's be honest. The reason why people come out with content is so they could become successful. But now the problem is that being that it's oversaturated, you have to take into account who's actually doing it for the money and who's actually doing it for the betterment of relationships. And that alone kind of ties into the subject of this video, because when I sit back and look at this content, and I realize that when it comes to black relationships, we have a lot of work. We have a lot of work. I mean, when you think about it, not saying that other content creators from different other cultures are not doing this, because they are. But when you look at our segment of YouTube, it's massive. Now, I've always looked at social media. I always looked at social media as a snapshot of the black community, because you'll have other races of people out there who have never been around black Americans. They just never have. And so the only way they can learn the nature of black Americans is they have to go out there and they have to find the information. In today's society, the best way to get that information is the internet. So when they're going through these different types of content and they see how black people engage with one another, that in itself is a determination how they will look at us and the way we interact in our culture. And by that, what I'm saying is, when it comes down to the relationship between black men and black women, we just don't have the know-how on how to treat each other. We just don't. We just don't, and there's so many factors into it that it's not even funny. We do not know how to engage with one another when it comes down to the man and the woman in a relationship. We just don't. And one of the main factors is because the breakdown of the households. And I know I mentioned this in several of my videos, but when you have children raised in single parent homes, they are going to adapt to what they see in that household. And because of that, when they see the mother there and she's the only one there as far as like being a adult, they're gonna think like her. And when they see that mother engage in a conversation with some man that she may be talking to, dating, or whatever, because they're not in a deep relationship like that, they're gonna have a lot of arguments. They're gonna be going back and forth, and you're gonna see that. And because you're seeing that, you're gonna think as a child, that's how it's supposed to be. Now, I'm not saying that marriages are perfect. There's no such thing as a perfect marriage. You're gonna have arguments in marriages, but when it comes down to black people, it's a constant back and forth almost every day, every single day. And when you look deep into that situation, you're gonna realize that that mother, she also grew up in that same type of environment where she had a single mother, and the same thing with that guy. And because both of them grew up in households where they never saw a man and a woman in a marriage, you know, going through the hard times, they don't know how to do it. Now, as human beings, we have a survival instinct. We have an instinct that when it comes down to it at the last minute, if we can't, if we don't have a defense mechanism that's readily available, we're gonna do what we do best and create one. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, I'm about to go into the topic of the video because when you look at the thumbnail represents a problem that we have amongst our community. You have the wolf, and he has on the outfit of a sheep. And if you don't know, that's pretty much a picture of the idiom of wolf in sheep's clothing. Because when you look at that picture and you see the wolf in sheep's clothing, you think in a religious aspect because that's in the Bible. You know, the Bible teaches people to watch for false prophets. You know, those prophets, what they'll do is they'll try to fit in with that group that they're trying to manipulate. And they'll come out cunning. You know, they'll come up with some charisma, but deep down inside, they don't have no emotional attachment of you or with you. Deep down inside, they have some sadistic, egregious thinking process, and because of that, they're trying to do something to you that you're not going to expect. But you're not going to see that because you're focused on the outside. Now, when you look at the photo I have attached to it, you have a woman and she's holding a face. That photo is supposed to represent the same thing, except that it's supposed to be non-biblical, because this is not what this video is about. I don't want to go deep into the Bible when it comes to this video. But what we have done was we have taken some aspect of that Bible and it's going on in our everyday lives in the community. Because when you look at that woman, it's pretty much a wolf in sheep's clothing. Now, I don't want this video to be about specifically women, because the man, you're at fault in this too. Because when you look at black relationships, or the lack of. You have to understand that there has to be a pattern, because when you look at the statistics, I believe that 70% of women are chronologically single. Now I think it might be more than that now. I think it might be more than that. But what has happened is you have people out there on social media, and they're pushing out this narrative to where it's all the women's fault. Now we can look at the politics of it, and we can go so far back to where we can come up with with the inception of the feminist movement and these the liberal DNC ideology. We can do that, but at the same time, you can't keep pointing your finger. As like I said in my video a while back, you have to look in the mirror. At some point, you have to look in the mirror, because when you look in that mirror, you will see for yourself that you are that wolf in sheep clothing. When I sit back and I see this, and I'm going to reference this content. There's this massive content being pushed out now, where you have, I call it the dating show, where you have these hosts trying to get these men and women to go in front of the camera and link up with each other, which is all fine. It's all fine, but again, and I also mentioned this in one of my other videos, I can't really take that serious. I just can't. I can't take that serious. I think it's ineffective. And then when I made that video, now I'm not saying that she follows my content, because I'm barely at 50 subscribers, and my channel's been around for like a little over 2 weeks, so I'm still starting off. It hasn't even been a month yet, so there's no way in hell I can sit there and assume that she watches my channel. So I'm just gonna take it as a coincidence. But when I made that video, the next day there was a post put out on YouTube where this woman posted information about online dating. And the information she pushed out was she pretty much offered information in which I'm gonna brief it up, that online dating is not really bad as people think it is. It's actually effective. And she tried to go on to say that majority of relationships in today's modern society were built built from online dating. So you had a woman and man linked up online, and they got connected, and then they was able to build a relationship. But as I read that post, I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, yeah, they got together, but did it last? Now that's the reason why I'm saying this, because it's just like I said before. When you look at the dynamic of the community and the lack of interaction when it comes down to masculinity and feminism, and people from opposite sides knowing the responsibilities and the nature that comes from the opposite side of that, I mean, do you believe that it took a computer to get them to come together? Because when I look at these videos, you have these women. They'll bring women onto the show, and that alone kind of troubles me, because last time I checked, the men are the ones who's supposed to offer the woman a relationship. The man's supposed to offer a woman a marriage. But for some reason, I guess today it has flipped around to where now women, they can come on, they can decide who they have a relationship with. But you have these women coming to the show, and their intent is to find a soulmate or whatever. And now I want y'all to understand this. Now I'm saying soulmate. Listen again, soulmate. So you have these women coming to the show, and their intentions is to find a soulmate to meet in order to potentially create a relationship with. And you have these men come on the show trying to sell themselves, and I just think that's all weird to me. Because if the woman don't like what they see, they can say, drop pineapple or whatever, and then the host will drop the phone call and go to the next person. But again, I think that's weird to me. I think that's weird because my thing is that how can you trust that method? Because you have a woman and she's putting out her bio in hopes of people calling in to meet her, right? And because of that, you'll have these men that will call in if they like what they hear. But how do you know what she's saying is true? Because she'll get on the show and sell herself as if she's like the diamond in the rough. She'll sell herself like she's the one that got the right. She's mentally stable. She's physically attractive, and she knows how to be feminine, and then she knows the nature of masculinity. But she sells it that way. But how you know that's actually her? And it's the same thing with these men. These men call on the show and they try to get with this woman, and they're behind the camera, and they're also trying to share their personality with that woman. Now, my thing is, how can you find a soulmate if you're doing it in a situation in which you're not meeting the person physically? To me, it's more effective to actually meet someone in person, talk to them, because I'm gonna tell you right this. You know how easy it is. You know how easy it is to fake it until you make it. It's real easy. The hard part is keeping it going. I could walk down the street right now and run into somebody I don't know, and I could hold a conversation, and I could come off being the nicest person on earth. It's real easy to fake it till you make it. The hard part is keeping it going. Because I can go run into that individual and talk as if I'm the nicest person in the world, but if we come up to be friends, how long do you think I'll be able to hold that or act that out? That takes a lot of work. That takes a lot of work. That's why when people say you have to fake it till you make it, that's why I kind of give them the side eye, because that takes a lot of work. And the reason why is because that's not your character. That's not your personality. You're trying to go against nature, and nature at the end of the day is going to win. It's going to win. And that being said, that's the reason why I say I think it's better meeting someone one-on-one. Because when you go behind that camera and you got this woman trying to tell this man what he wants to hear, and you got this man telling this woman what she wants to hear, next thing you know, when they actually meet each other, I say within a week or two, it's not going to last. That was a waste of time. You don't waste it 2 weeks. Because when one meets the other, and as time go on, they're not going to be able to carry on what they sold to the other. And that's the reason why I say that black relationships for the most part don't work, because when you think about it, you have a lot of these when you think about a lot of these relationships were not supposed to start in the first place. And you'll see it in action. You'll have this guy at a bar walk up to this girl, and you're sitting there, and you've been in the bar for like before everybody else has been in the bar, and this guy walks in the bar, and you done seen this guy, and you know him, but you'll see the same guy walk up to this woman, and this woman don't even know this guy, and he'll start talking to her, and then when you sit back and pick up the hints or pick up his behavior patterns, you realize that he's acting out of character. And you'll be sitting there scratching your head, like looking at him weird, dude, what are you doing? That's not you. But guess what? Because it sounds good, she's buying it. She's buying into it. And next thing you know, he gets her number, she gets his number, and then they connect, and it is what it is. But then, like a couple weeks down the road, you run into that same guy again, and you talk to him, and you ask him, "Hey, what happened to you and that woman, you and that chick that you met at the bar?" "Oh, it didn't work out, man. She's crazy." And I'm thinking to myself, like, you didn't pick that up. And then, like, a lot of times I'll be one, like, if I ain't gonna say a lot of times, but in that example, you'll say to yourself, "Well, I wish I could. If I knew where that chick was, where she was at, I would go ask her what happened." Because if I had a chance to walk up to her, I'd be like, "Hey, what happened to that guy you met at the bar?" And more likely, she gonna say the same thing. "Oh, he ain't good. He just crazy." And I'm thinking to myself, like, you didn't pick that up. And of course y'all didn't pick that up, because why? Because y'all ignored the signs. He sold you a good game, and you bought into it. You didn't think about taking time to get to know the person. You didn't think about that. Because the signs has always been there. It's just the fact that you never knew. Because why? Because you bought into what he sold you right there at that moment. Instead of, okay, let me use this analogy. You walk up to a car dealership and you want to buy a car. You have a salesman approach you, and he's being all nice, because why? Because he wants you to buy that car so he can get commission. So he's telling you all the good things about that car, and he's selling it so much to where he has you standing there, and you're imagining yourself being in that car, and you're only worried about the good things. That's all you worried about. You leave out the lot, and a week later you pull up back into the lot telling that guy that, the engine of this car is all jacked up. You didn't tell me it was all jacked up. And that's the same thing with meeting a person out in the ordinary. You walk up to somebody and they're selling you a good game, but because you're not asking, or you're not trying to get the bad information, you just take what you get and you ride off the lot. And then a week or two later, now you want to return that, thinking somebody's going to take it back. And no, it's not. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. Just like at the dealership, what you'll do is you'll ask that salesman, "Can I go on a test drive?" And then the salesman, they'll give you the keys, and they'll ride with you to go on a test drive. And when you get back, you give the keys back to him, and you let him or her know that you'll be back tomorrow. It's going to make them upset, but oh well, because it's your money, not theirs. So you'll come back tomorrow and you'll ask for another test drive, and they'll have to give you another test drive, and you drive it around again to see if you find any differences compared to the first day you drove it. You are what we call test driving the vehicle, but you don't do that in your relationships. Y'all don't you don't go out there and you meet somebody, and then you start off as friends or whatever, and then you wait like a month or whatever, and then you upgrade to another status of being in a relationship. You don't do that. What you do is you give the guy the number, or the guy give you the number, and then next thing you know, within the first week, y'all sleeping with each other, and now you have kids, and now you're by yourself. because you never test drive the relationship. You just never did. And now you're even more pissed off because now you feel like you've been used. Just like when you take your car back and you want to get your money back, and you just happen to go to a dealership to where all sales are final. Now you pissed off because you feel like you got ripped off. You have that same feeling. But at the end of the day, you can only blame yourself, because why? Because you didn't ask that dealer about the history of that vehicle. It's the same thing with those relationships. You didn't ask the other person the history of their relationships, because a lot of them are not going to tell you. A lot of them are not going to tell you. But that's when you go. That's when you go for a test drive. That's when you start off a relationship, hang around them, and just like I said before, it's hard to fake it till you make it. Eventually, that being said, all the information is going to come out. You're going to start learning that information, because if you don't get it from him or her, you're going to get it from their friends, and even they might not do it intentionally, but as they're talking, you can get a lot of information out of it. You didn't test drive the relationship because you allowed that person to be a wolf in sheep's clothing. Now, just like I said, when I talk about this subject, I'm talking about for both men and women, because you men, y'all do the same thing too. Y'all do the same thing too. That's the reason why you walk up to a lot of these women and you talk to them about relationship goals or whatever, and then you tell them about their last relationships. This is the reason why they'll say, "Well, I thought I could change him," because now that they've met this guy, because you done went out there and sold them a good game, you pretty much displayed to them something that you're really not. They bought into it. And now that y'all in a relationship, because there's so much being invested into that relationship, they don't want to let go. So now, because they don't want to let that go, what they're thinking now is, well, since I have so much investment into this, let me see if I can change him to be the what but I want him to be. And that's why a lot of women say that. That's why you'll hear a lot of women say, "Well, I thought I can change him," because they were surprised. They were sidetracked. You didn't give them the bad information that they needed to hear. You didn't. And this is why they're where they're at right now. This is the reason why a majority of black people, or the majority of black relationships, don't work. Because you have two parties that are trying to manipulate each other by selling each other stuff that they think the other person wants to see or wants to hear, instead of them just being themselves. This is the reason why. This is the reason why it bothers me that you have these content creators who will sit there and you'll have these content creators that'll tell you how to talk to women, and how to be more masculine, and how to talk to men, and how to be more feminine. Look, when you're trying to go against nature, you're going to lose. That being said, you have different categories when it comes to masculinity and femininity. You have the alpha, beta, omega, you have the sigma, you have all that. That's what nature had created. You can't change that. Because when you try to change that, nature is going to get pissed off. And what nature's going to do is, hey, nature's going to humble you. It's going to get you back in line. So when you have all this content out here where they're trying to teach masculinity, they're teaching it as if all men are supposed to be alphas. But see, you have to understand, naturally, it is not going to work because by nature, all women are not going to accept alphas. All women are not going to accept sigmas, omegas, betas. Certain women is going to accept certain levels of masculinity. That's how it works. That's nature. So if you're a guy if you're a guy that's going online onto these YouTube videos or shows and trying to hook up with a woman, just be yourself. Stop trying to be something that you're not. Because sooner or later, your true self is going to be exposed. And it's the same thing with you women. When y'all trying to link up with these men, stop telling them things that they want to hear. Just be yourself. Because somewhere down the line, there's somebody who's going to be attracted to you. Everybody's not going to be alphas. It's not going to happen. This is the reason why these shows are somewhat comical to me. Because there's so much lies in these videos. You got women putting on makeup and they get on the camera and they trying to, they got all this makeup on, they trying to talk all soft, and that's not them. That's not them. You meet them in real life, they look completely different without their makeup, and their voice has a whole different tone. And whatever they say they did, they're not telling you that what came with it, the problems that came with it. It's the same thing with these guys. They're doing the same thing. There was one show where you had this woman. She was going through the phone calls, and you can see the guys on the video, and they were trying to talk to her, and she'll like drop the call, whatever, go to the next guy, to the next guy, to the next guy, and so on. Well, she runs into this one guy who's, he presents himself to be a thug, and you can see it in her face that she's attracted to that. Now, you had all these guys before this guy came up. All these other guys were kind of like nerds. They'll come like, I ain't gonna say nerds, but they're kind of like the clean, like some were clean cut, some were just, guys that were not about that. They were not about that life of being a thug. But this guy did. Before the phone call ended, he was the first guy, and I think it was like 10 or 20 guys before him. He was able to get her request to get in contact with her on her DM. Now, days later, come to find out, this guy, they did link up. But they didn't link up in person. They link up, by DM. He DM'd her. He sent a message on her DM, and she responded. He said that right before that conversation ended, she showed him pics. She showed him pictures. Let me correct that. She sent him explicit pictures. Now, when you look at her in that video, she comes off as not being that type of woman to do that. She has on the makeup. She's talking right. She's trying to talk trying to be careful on how she structures her sentences. But then behind the scenes, she's doing stuff like that. That's a wolf in sheep's clothing. Now, a lot of you men might sit there and say to yourselves, because I've heard this plenty of times, women like the thugs. Now, people sit there and say the reason why women like the thugs is because the thugs, they represent the alphas. But again, based off of nature, all women are not attracted to thugs because they're alphas. It doesn't work that way. It just does not work that way. The reason why women are attracted to thugs is because thugs are showing who they really are. They're not out there trying to get cleaned up and dressed up and try to talk different and try to present themselves to be totally different. They get on the camera, they just showing who they are. and that alone comes off attractive to these women. It comes off attractive to these women. The only problem is because you have other types of men seeing that, they assume that because those are alphas, they'll come off on a woman and they try to do the same thing because they think that that's what the women want. But see, here's the problem with that, because now that they're trying to do that, they're manipulating that woman to think that they're something that they're not. And when they get into a relationship, that guy, he can't naturally carry that fakeness off. He ain't gonna be able to do that. Eventually that woman's gonna catch up. And when she sees him for who he really is, that's gonna be a turn off. And that's when that relationship is gonna start going downhill. This is the reason why I say that the reason why black relationships don't work, because both parties are too busy trying to lie to each other. Just be yourselves. Just be yourself. Because I mean, when you think about it, I mean, rest his soul. But when you think about Kevin Samuels really was no alpha. He just wasn't. He wasn't. But because he came off being who he was, that's why he was able to have so many women call his show. That's why his show was able to grow so fast. He was just being himself. That's the reason why a lot of women called his show and they was asking for his advice. You have women coming in their natural form. They wasn't wearing no makeup. They wasn't trying to talk all nice. If they were trying to talk nice, it was because that's really who they were. But you had a lot of women on there talking with with a masculine voice. And the reason why is because they saw him for who he was. Now everybody want to sit there and say, well, he wasn't wearing those suits before. Actually, he was. It wasn't that. Now you could say that they probably weren't that expensive at the time, but he was still. When you look at his old videos, he was somewhat clean cut. He was somewhat clean cut. I mean, when you look at his old videos before he became popular, before he blew up, you can't sit there and tell me that he was dressed up like a thug. You just can't. You can't. There's a when it comes down to relationships, there's this old saying, and that is, there's someone for how does it go? Yeah, I can't believe it just went off the top of my head. I was just about to say it. It's on the tip of my tongue. But you know what I'm talking about. There's someone for everybody or something like that. But when you look at that, you can look it up. But when you look it up and you see that, what it's pretty much saying is that just be yourself. Just be yourself. If you're yourself, you're gonna have a relationship and it's gonna last. It's gonna be everlasting. Because more than likely, whether you're the man or the woman, you're gonna run into someone that you truly liked. You truly like. They're not gonna be an individual trying to follow the status quo. They're gonna be who they are. Yeah, somebody else might not like them. Somebody else might not like them, but you do. Somebody else might not like her. Somebody else might not like her because she this, and like it could be weight, it could be face, it could be like the skin tone. It doesn't even matter. But if you like the individual, that's all that matters. That's all that matters. That's all that matters. Everybody talk about how ugly Jay-Z is, and let's be honest. The only reason why there are women out there that say he's actually attractive, they're only looking at the money aspect of it. But let's be honest. No woman's really talking about Jay-Z as being attractive. Not no good looking guy. But guess what? He's married to a woman that a lot of men deem attractive, but he sees that, but he's mainly dating her because, well, he was mainly dating her at the time because he actually liked her. And look at the relationship. It's just like that woman who's married to Seal. If you don't know Seal, he was a singer, black male, overseas, but he was married to a white woman. She was nice looking, but you look at Seal. A lot of women wasn't too fond of Seal, but guess what? We can all sit there and say they're gold digging, but there's a chance we could say that those women are gold digging, but there's a chance that they're not. You don't know those women. Just because they're married to a rich guy and that guy's like less than average looking doesn't mean that they're using them. They probably actually like these guys because they're who they are. But that's pretty much what it is, man. For all you women and men, if y'all actually sit back and you go through your past relationships, and when you actually go through your you actually sit back and go through your relationships and analyze them, you'll realize in those relationships, not only you but the other person, y'all spent more time trying to manipulate each other than that's trying to show who you are, and that's why you failed in those relationships. This is the reason why. And a lot of you don't understand that. Because what y'all do is y'all be at the age of 40s, 50s, and 60s, and you'll go on Facebook and you'll be posing, you'll be in photos posing as if you trying to thirst trap somebody. And it doesn't really take all that. You don't have to go on Facebook and dress a certain way and show your butt in front of the picture just to thirst trap somebody. Because why? Because if you're doing it trying to find someone, you're repeating history. The next person you find, they're not gonna try to date you for who you are. They're gonna try to date you for what you try to sell. And if you got that butt in the photo, that's what they're coming in to try to get. Just be yourself. Again, this is the reason why I don't watch those dating videos on YouTube, because it's worthless. I ain't gonna say it's worthless, it's pointless. I say that it's pointless. If you actually want to meet somebody, you meet them in person. That's the reason why I emphasize that term soulmate. You can't you don't know if somebody's your soulmate by them camera. You have to meet them in person. You have to have that physical interaction with them. You have to have that emotional interaction with them. Human to human interaction. To see if they're soulmates or not. Ain't no computer, no matter how modern our technology is, ain't no computer is gonna be able to do that. A lot of y'all walk by. Y'all will go to your local WalMarts, go shopping, and you'll have, if you're a woman, you'll have some guy walk past you, and if you're a guy, you'll have some woman walk right past you, and they could potentially be your soulmate. They could potentially be your soulmate because you are so delusional. You're so damn delusional, and they're walking by you, and they're not showing you what you think you want to see. You're not even paying attention to them. You're not even paying attention to them. You just walking right past them, going on with your everyday life. But again, because you don't think they have what you think you should have. You know what I'm saying? When I mean by think, I mean like as far as like the delusion. You done missed opportunity. You missed opportunity because with you, man, you have to understand. Y'all talk all this stuff like y'all want a woman to be feminine and all this other stuff and good shape and all this other stuff, which is fine. But if you walking by a woman who's not meeting that standard, and you just happen to link up with her because you're talking to her, y'all having a conversation, and what she's saying is appealing to you, and what you're saying is appealing to her. Just by letting nature take its course, if that woman feels like she wants to move on with the relationship, guess what? Because you are who you are, she's gonna respect that, and because she respects that, she's gonna start acting exactly the way you want her to act, and she's not doing it just to manipulate you. She's doing it because nature is taking its course. But let me know what you think in the video. You have any comments, feel free to put in the comment section. Subscribe to the video, like it, share it, and I'll see you next time. Peace. And before I go, I just want to add that if you still don't know exactly what I'm getting at when I'm explaining in this video of the concept of being a wolf in sheep's clothing, what I mean is, and I should explain this before, but what I mean is that majority of us are manipulators to, we are trying to con or use someone out of something that we don't have and we need to survive. And again, that creates a problem because let me tell you this story, for example, real quick. You know, there was this woman who, me and her was having a conversation, and she was married and her husband was in the military. She had a son from a different husband. So the guy she's married with now is a stepfather. Now he's in the military, so they stay on post. They stay on the military installation, and because of that, he is the sponsor, which means he's the provider of the family. And with that, he has, because of his job of being in the military, his wife and her son has a place to stay. Their utilities are paid for. Their medical bills are paid for, all under his name. He's a provider, so it's all under his name. Now, when she was talking to me, she said that anytime her son did something wrong, her husband, he couldn't intervene. He had to let her know so she can fix the issue. And I'm thinking to myself, like, that's strange. And I know a lot of women do that. And I know I mentioned that in one of my old videos, that you want the guy to provide his resources, but when it comes down to making decisions, when it influences the family, he doesn't have that say-so. And I would have to stand back and think to myself, what is your real intentions of being married to that guy? Do you really want him to be a figure, the main figure of the family in which he's a dominant role model? Or are you just using him for his resources? I mean, it's okay for him to share his. Okay, so you got everything paid for. Your son has everything paid for under this guy. But when it comes down to your son going out there doing something stupid to where he has to be corrected, your husband can't do it. Do y'all see what I'm saying? And you have these passport bros. These passport bros, they have picked up on that because they have now got this mindset to which, what do I look like dating a woman in this country? Yeah, she might present herself as being wholesome, but on the inside, she could be using me because whatever guy she dealt with in the past couldn't give her what she wanted. And because this guy was able to sell himself to her in the ways to where she bought into it, later on she found out that she got manipulated and she left the guy. The only problem is that before she left the guy, they created a family. So now her survival mode's kicked in. So now she comes to me playing the same game in which she's trying to present herself to be wholesome to me, but I have to think to myself, are you just doing it just to get something out of me? And again, you women and you men, y'all have to be honest with yourselves. You can't be honest to someone else if you're not honest with yourself. Again, subscribe to the channel, give it a thumbs up, share it, and I'll see you next time. Peace.